the next area is the Hart van Zuid area, right? To do a switch, and which is quite important to perhaps to mention is that what you are pleading for, a social program pairing with the spatial development, is already in place in the Hart van Zuid urban area development. So how does that play out? And this was an interesting condition perhaps for the next group. So Andrea, you're going to introduce?
I'm going to introduce, yes. Yeah, ready? Yeah. Hi, my name is Andrea Fiski. I'm part of the Veldacademie team, and I'm happy to introduce you to the team Hart van Zuid, Heart of South. And after a whole week of doing site visits, mapping just and unjust situations in the area, and analyzing the project from the perspective of the Just City Index, they came up with a spatial intervention that meets the goals formulated in the social program behind the Hart van Zuid development. So please tell us more about it.
Thank you, Andrea, not only for your introduction, but also for your help this week. I'm Lisanne. I study sociology, and I'm from The Hague, Netherlands.
Yeah, my name is Frederic, and they call me Frey this week. And I'm a student liberal arts and sciences, so in Erasmus University College, and I'm majoring in medicine, and I'm from Rotterdam.
And my name is Joan, or Joni, and I am originally from the United States, but I am studying urban development and management at Erasmus as well. So as we've introduced ourselves, what we're really going to make you guys think about and question throughout this whole entire project and what we're presenting is the idea of, who has the clicker? Thank you. Yeah? So we have this development that's taking place. We have a city that is expanding throughout various different areas that you've all seen already in other previous presentations. And in this area, there is an amazing project that's happening, and there is the potential for these people to maybe get excluded. However, there is a social programma, which Andrea mentioned, and there is the opportunity for these people to really be recognized in this project and not just necessarily be more of a built environment. So think about these things as we're presenting, and we'll get started. So Zuid is, Hart van Zuid, sorry, is a neighborhood that's very diverse, and it's also got a lot of different people in it. So you have a ton of different people that you can potentially target with a project like Hart van Zuid. So you have a lot of people that are unemployed potentially, lots of different migrants, Dutch people, and there's also, like I said before, a very large growth rate happening within the city, 3% per year, and a lot of that is happening within the south, which is a lot of the reason why they're creating a project that creates a center within the south region of Rotterdam. And they also have this very nice development plan that we are going to touch on now. So they have a built environment project, but the one thing that's really nice about this project as well is that they have the opportunity to create a social program which they have established in their tender agreement of the project, which allows people to participate. However, some of the things may not necessarily align with specifics of targeting these kinds of groups and also the community as a whole. And so Frey is going to talk a little bit about that right now.
Yeah, so first, wait, let me get to the... Sorry. So what we established, and we're going to talk about this more later, so yeah, are the values that we think are important in the Hart van Zuid. So the bigger ones we thought were more important, but we like to include all of those. So yeah, have a look at them, and then I'll get back to where... Okay, so sorry. So for the social programma, or the social program, as I will call it, they basically set up a document with many chapters, and what they said in those, like they had conditions for what they wanted to achieve socially also next to spatially. And it's in Dutch, so this is what they said, and I translated it for you. So they want to create cohesion in the environment, create meeting spaces, a greenery, listen to inhabitants and users, and keep jobs in the area. And those all are on the same page as our values, what we value in the area. So agency is important, but also inclusion, health, and opportunity. So yeah. But what is missing in the social program is that they fail to see the bigger picture. So what they did is they created an organization, and this organization was going to set up 10 educational spots for people from the area, and they were going to provide them with education to give them opportunities, which is great. And they also did they want to organize 4 events per year to increase social and interaction. And this is all great, but it's missing like the bigger impact. So if you're gonna do those 2 things, it's not gonna impact as much as you want. It's not gonna impact the whole area. So you should see like there should be more, and it should be more detailed. And also those are both top-down initiatives. So where's the voice of the public? Where's the agency? So, and also we found this in the agreement, or in the tender agreement, and we think those are too vague to actually like what are you going to do with it? De-stress the traffic, that's nice, but what value does it adhere to? So yeah. And we found like solutions, so we're going to talk about it later.
So we went to the site, and there were a few things that caught our attention. First of all, like there were bikes everywhere. There's like no safe or clear place to park your bike where it's sheltered and guarded. So the bikes are everywhere, and you have to walk around it. And also we found that a lot of buildings were not used in a way that's how do you say it? Good. And also what we saw, there are a lot of people sitting on the concrete edges, and there's like not a really nice place to sit and stay and hang out and also meet each other and interact, which is pretty important in this area. Yeah, I should get the clicker. So we mapped these conditions, and you can have a look at it, but like the things we thought were pretty just was it was very accessible to disability, so that was good. And also there was a lot of diversity within the shopping mall. But as we said, there's no clear bike parking, and also it's not very inviting. There's no greenery, it's only concrete. So what is actually pretty interesting to see is a lot of the inside areas are just, and a lot of the outside areas are unjust. So we wanted to focus on the outside areas. So as Frey talked about, we identified some values, which most come from the Just City Index, designed by Tony Griffin. But we added one, which is opportunity, which relates to like the opportunity for people to climb the social ladder, but also the opportunity of meeting each other and like, yeah. So we created a manifesto.
And so this manifesto kind of engages the different values that we've associated with not only the potential for the project, but also for us to ultimately develop further into initiatives and ideas for the space and its intervention. So we'll do a little reading of it. So besides building a new Zuid, it's not just about the new buildings themselves, it's also about the people and representing their moral fiber. The amended Hart van Zuid social programma represents the importance of human development. We believe in building people in places that are inclusive and importance of providing people with opportunities that enables the community to make the choices upon their own interests. We have a true calling to build bridges instead of walls. We need you, the people. We need you, Hart van Zuid. So Lisanne's going to go into the programma and how we can create personas for people.
Yeah, so we created these personas, which are obviously not the only people using the space, but we wanted to focus, at least in the beginning, on these target groups because they're on the social margins of society. So first of all, we have Greet, which is an elderly woman, and she might have a disability, so we have to make sure that she can reach our place. Also, we have Ayub, which is a high school student. He speaks both Dutch and Arabic. And also there's a high risk of dropout within the high school, so we have to might account for that. And then we have Renate, which is Renate, as we say. She's a single parent, and she's partly dependent on welfare. And she might want to have some initiatives there that, you know, take her into consideration. And then we have Bas, which is pretty much a commuter. He travels through Zuidplein a lot, but he also goes there to go to Ahoy. But he really wants to be engaged with all of the things going on and making sure that his wishes are heard. So the approach we took was we thought of the Fietspark, which means bicycle park, and it has like a two-way meaning. It's both parking of your bike, but also a park with greenery and lots of different spaces. So it consists of some sub-approaches, which are, of course, the bike parking, but also the communal space, a communication network, and a human development area or program. Do you want to talk more about that?
Yeah, so within these different projects, one thing that we kind of touched on as we did our site visit is, oh, there's no light, but you can see within the drawing that there is a underutilized space that we found very close to the rail station, and that it wasn't being utilized. And there was a lot of people that actually were utilizing the space itself. However, they just weren't necessarily given the opportunity to interact with each other and also do things in the space itself. However, there also is within the tender program agreement, as Frey said, these initiatives that they want to take into consideration, but there is no way for people to kind of take on these opportunities themselves, but then also the communication network for them to, of course, ask questions about the project. Not necessarily just the creation of a space, but understanding the space that is being built and giving feedback on the project. It's not really happening. So we decided to create these interventions. So one first part that we kind of did a little sketch of, thanks to Frey, is a Fietsparking inside of the unused building where the whole entire space is utilizing space containers, that we have for the port itself, which kind of reflects that character, the grit of the South, and identifies with people and their character. And so you'd go inside of this little ramp to make it accessible, and then there'd of course be other different things for you to utilize in the space, but for now we'll talk about the parking. So as you can see, the container uses it. So examples of people that would use this space that we have for now are Renata, Ayub, or Bas, as they're commuting through the area, and for them to park their bike in a space where it's actually safe, and also just a general space for people to utilize. And then also within the communal space, do you want to talk about this one? Who wants to talk about it?
So these, this is the communal space. Those were the containers that were standing on the area. Those are basically like community containers, and they can be reserved by the people. And there's, in the space itself, there is on the outside there are kind of like the McDonald's screens, like the order screens you can see, like. Those are standing on in the park, and you can basically they are for feedback, so you can answer polls and ask your questions, and they will be sent they will be digitalized for feedback. And as you are filling in polls, for example, do you like this, yes or no, you can see on the big billboards that are also standing in the park, you can see how your choice influences the statistics or the data. So it's like a live action. You can see the pie charts change and all that kind of stuff. So those can be reserved on a website by the people, those community spaces, and it can also be used for other things and programs.
So the value addressed here is definitely agency, because we want to give people the opportunity to use spaces in a way that they want to, and also maybe develop it over time. So also addressing other personas. And also, of course, inclusion. We want to make sure that everybody feels happy in the space. And it's actually what Frey was talking about with the McDonald's screens. It kind of relates to the next idea, which is a communication network. We created a feedback loop, which is, first of all, it's going to show up-to-date information about the project, and then it gives the possibility to give feedback or create ideas or file complaints. And then it is important that there's a regular evaluation of this feedback, and also the implementation of relevant feedback. So knowing that it will be looked at least. We also created a mock-up website maybe, because we thought the current website is not really giving people the opportunity to navigate, but also give feedback. So you can see a little bit about that. Do you want to add something on that?
Oh, thanks. So you can see, as Frey kind of talked about with the communal space, people have the opportunity to reserve the park on the left-hand side, talk a little bit about the social programma and the projects that the developer have already established. However, they can apply for these social development, human development programs that they want to initiate within the community, and they can establish them themselves. And also, there is the opportunity for people to just kind of give feedback on, you know, what's happening with not only this specific spatial intervention that we've developed, but also the project, and make sure that they feel represented within the community. And the nice thing about this is that it really reflects, as Lisanne was saying, the people over time, and kind of what they really want to do. So everyone is pretty much included in this process, no matter what level of I guess you could say, intervention in the community. How, if you're living there, if you're commuting, you have the opportunity to really feel engaged, and it's also within the physical space itself that we have developed for you to give that feedback, let's say if you may not have access to the internet.
Okay, so and another point that we thought was very important to address was the human development part, because of course, the social program and the social issues that are going on in South. So we thought maybe like the spaces could be used for a kitchen that's kind of a baby between InStock and the Color Kitchen. InStock is a restaurant that uses food that cannot be sold anymore for whatever reason. And also the Color Kitchen uses people who have a distance to the labor market in their kitchen, so they're able to cook there and also learn something and get a degree, so they can not be unemployed anymore and also have some income. Which this is a picture of. It could be like an open container where everybody could go. And then we also thought of maybe reading buddies, where high school students teach primary students, or well, not teach, but like read together, so they can improve their language and also have some social connection. And then also we thought of a daycare that's run by elderly. So elderly, they're looking for companionship, like Greet, and they might alleviate Renate, who's a single parent, by looking after their kids. And also maybe creating community groups or support groups for single parents to talk about their issues and maybe get classes on health or something. So our multi-purpose spaces in the containers could be used for these programs. So it definitely addresses the values of opportunity, but also inclusion and happiness. And then we also made a timeline to give like a frame on when to implement it. Yeah,
so within the social programma, I actually do need this, sorry. within the social programma, there is a timeline attached to this tender agreement. So it's around, I believe, 25 years as of right now, since they've already started developing some of these buildings. So we kind of want to try and align with that, just because we think that it'll be important for them to not only create more specific strategic goals for the social programma that align with also the space intervention, creating a social social inclusionary space for people to participate and feel like they're really involved in the community and engaged. So with that in mind, we decided that first, of course, you have to build the space. And then once that is operable, then you would have that space to be established based upon the needs of community. And so within that feedback mechanism that we developed, people will then, once the space is built, have the opportunity to kind of change it around. If they want to mock up a space that is maybe not necessarily the way that it looks right now, they have the opportunity to change it and also have specific events that they want within the community, because these storage units are very, very easy to move around. It's easy for them to also then create their own space and make a space that makes them feel comfortable and included. And so within the operation of the online feedback, this kind of stuff can happen literally anywhere. You can do it online right now, and the programma could start today if we really wanted to. So this way people can kind of start to develop ideas, create feedback for the project itself, and also then in the future, once the space is developed, provide feedback for the space and how they want it to look and the events that they want to have. And at first, we would, of course, be targeting a lot of these groups that we were talking about in the first place. People that may be just not necessarily included in community events, and trying to make sure that they're also generating social and economic development within these different human programs that we create. However, in the future, as it continues on, that might change with the way that the neighborhood is also changing. And so, of course, these 4 different people, they can then have the groups targeted to them at first, but that might change, and that comes with the space as well. And the nice thing about this space in general is that, if it doesn't work out and, there is someone that is just not really necessarily happy with something, well, then they can change the space and they can change the initiatives that are going on. So we're taking you back a little bit. So as we discussed earlier, there is a space that's being developed, and it's a great space, but there is also the challenge for people to be engaged and feel part of their community, and the project that is being developed is trying to do that. However, there is no real specific concrete example, and we think that these things that we talked about, the social and spatial interventions, will address social urban justice needs, and hopefully we can create something in the future like this with our great team. So, yeah.
Thank you very much. I think you worked very hard last night because for the audience, we all had a pre-presentation at 5 o'clock yesterday evening, and we can see that you really worked hard that night because you rounded up your presentation very well. So thank you for that. I have a few remarks. I like very much that your first question was for the place was who is using it, and if there is a social program, will that program be finished when the development is finished, the physical development? And he said no, that's not possible because social development goes much longer than a physical development. I really like also that you looked into the tender procedure and you concluded, well, there are some social programs, but it's totally not specified. So what are they going to do actually? And I think this is a point. You put your finger onto a very important point, I think, in relation to a social program on such a major area development. If you put in vague goals for the development, nothing will happen, and you have to make it more specific. So my question to you is also how would we make it more specific? as for the city of Rotterdam as advice? How
Okay. Well, I think that one way that this can, start to be more specific is the tender agreement in the social programma. They have the initiative and the ideas there, but if they start to maybe identify with those marginalized groups, make sure that there is some sort of set timeline, because there is really no such thing in the program right now, then I think that they can start the initiation of that feedback mechanism where then people can start to apply for these things and create the programs themselves. But I think that probably the most important thing for the municipality to do right now, if they were to do it, is to create these programs and just start them. All it takes is just maybe a little leap into this big pond of craziness, and I just think that it's just not really happening right now. So they just need to make sure that they get their feet on the ground and talk to people about what they want. So.
Yeah, I'm going to pick up on that because I think it was really smart of you to remind us of what the tender agreement goals were for social programming, and to critique the fact that they are great goals, but they're generic, and how do we translate that into action? So your project, I think, suggests how such agreements with their good intentions are only good if they're specific enough that we can track and understand how they're actually executed and how we actually see the benefit. Like, how do we know justice when we see it? How will we know these great aspirations have been achieved? And I think, so you've done a good job of exposing that as a particular sort of weak spot in the tender agreement that can be changed. I think you've also exposed several good ideas of this is how we might begin to realize some of these things through projects and actions. I think a final step would be good, which is, are there metrics that we can then, over those timelines, monitor if we've been successful? So the number of people who go through the reading programs, how many different programs are created, how many times do people kind of go to the McDonald's menu and book the space to do something. So that way and then you can publish all that in your feedback loop mechanism, right? So I think you've given us really great ideas for how policy can adapt to holding itself accountable to achieving the goals that it would want to have. I don't really have a question. I'm going to add one more comment and then let you go, which is what I like about the Fietspark. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. 5 days, I'm almost Dutch. It really is this kind of do-it-yourself apparatus. And what I like that it's suggesting is how you're integrating technology as a way of programming and using the space in real time. Like that you can publish, hey, I'm going to reserve this spot and do this reading thing today. And that you can go to all these digital platforms and just go, hey, what's going on in the park today? So if you are the senior citizen and they just go out in the day and look for something to do, they might find all these really interesting things to do, and you can publish that. So as a design strategy, thinking about technology, the way we can control space or program space ourselves versus having an organization do it, I think that that's a really cool idea that maybe someone will pick up on and continue to experiment with. So thank you for offering us yet a whole nother set of new and interesting ideas.